Fail to plan and plan to fail. If your golf game isn't improving and you're wondering why, maybe you're not practicing with a plan. Let's transform your game. Hi, welcome to the channel. My name is Bill from Phoenix Golf, and today we're going to talk about how to practice with a plan, how to get better at golf with training aids and getting instant feedback so you can make notes when you go to the range and things you can do to have better practice sessions so you can improve at golf. Over time with my golf or when I was younger and played basketball and things of that nature, coaches always ingrained into me. So, like basketball, the first thing you do is you start with easy layups to kind of warm up, going over the fundamentals and things of that nature. When I'm learning piano right now, it's the same thing. You go over arpeggios and other things, and you start real slow and you focus on what you're doing. With golf, everybody loves to play golf. I would rather play than practice. But for me, I know the more time I put into practice, if I have a plan in place, if I know what I'm looking at, if I know what I'm working on, I get so much more out of my golf when I go out. I've been lucky enough to shoot in the 60s. I've had hole in ones. I've had 300 plus yard drives. All the good things that come along with working really hard. And I know sometimes people don't have as much time as I do, perhaps, to practice as much. So when you do get a chance to practice, you want to make sure you're getting the most out of it. So here are some tips and tricks and things that I do that help me get the most out of my practice. The first thing is obviously get a lesson. Make sure you know what you're working on. Talk to an experienced professional or somebody in the area who knows what they're talking about with golf. Because so many times, I mean, I've had multiple coaches and some of them think like, oh, that's fine, you can get away with that. Others are like, no, you definitely don't want that in your swing. You got to work hard to get rid of that. So even amongst professionals, there's disagreements on the best ways. And with golf, it's really difficult because there's people who are taller and shorter and thicker and smaller and all these different things. And so what might work for one person or a swing thought that might work for one person isn't what's going to work for everybody. So getting a lesson is always a good start, and see if you connect with that coach. See if what they're saying is making sense, and then try to educate yourself on what they are talking about so you can understand, not just, well, do it this way because, understand why you're doing that and the benefits that it's going to give you while you're working on it. So that's step number one. Step number two is learn how to record your golf swing. Make sure that you're getting the proper video positions, whether it's down the line or face on. And again, this will help educate you with knowing what to do in your golf swing. And a lot of people, I understand, they don't want to see themselves on camera. I get that. I'm not the most handsomest person in the world either. And you're just going to have to kind of forget that. And if you want help with your swing, you need to know what you look like and what you're trying to do. Two, they might not want to know because they're like, hey, it's too much mental stuff. I don't want to know what's going on. And that's okay too. But I always recommend that because the more you can see what you're doing, see what you look like when you're swinging, it'll help you identify problems that you can help work, that you can make better and understand. And I'm going to do a video on that of like what I look for and how I draw my lines on my body and stuff to understand what I'm trying to do. That being said, I did come across some really cool apps, AI apps that you can pay for to record your swing. It draws all the lines and it even gives you tips and video drills for what it thinks that is going on. Again, that's AI stuff. It's brand new. Some of the stuff I've seen, I'm like, I don't 100% agree with what they're talking about the swing. But again, that's using, picture perfect, and everybody's different. So don't focus too much on something that, if your body type, you're not going to be able to change that. Or if it's something super, super ingrained, you kind of got to figure out what you need to work on versus um, what you can work on that's going to give you the biggest benefit. Like for me, the takeaway, like you can get so much better at golf just by having a good takeaway. So for me, anytime you spend on that, it's going to give you a much bigger return on investment than little things around your golf swing where you're like, well, I'm not in the absolute perfect position at the top, so stuff like that. So for me, I love training aids. Training aids are always great because you get instant feedback. So again, if you get a lesson or you're aware you have a problem, if you can get a training aid, some of them vary in price. And I always say, even though I sell training aids, I always like find something around the house you can use. The cheaper thing, the better. Alignment rods and things of that nature you can get somewhere else for cheaper, just because it's not officially a golf product. So I recommend, always look around. Amazon reviews are really helpful. And then ask people, especially golf coaches, like what training aids would you recommend? Because some of them just aren't that great and some of them are really good and you get a lot of benefits. Some of the better training aids, unfortunately, are more expensive, but I've also seen people not understand the value they're getting from a training aid. And so like a swing guide is an awesome training aid because it really helps you identify wrist hinge and gets you in a really good position on the backswing. It's probably the cheapest, most effective golf training aid you can get, but it's also not the fanciest. And a lot of people are like, I don't need that. I need the $80 hanger thing, which if that's great, if it works for you, to each his own. But make sure you're finding training aids that work for you that are affordable. So instant feedback is wonderful. You watch me when I practice. The first things I usually do, if I'm on the range, I use 2 alignment rods like this. And what that helps me do is kind of create a gate to swing through. So for me, it helps me know if I'm coming too far from the inside, I'm going to hit a stick. If I'm coming too far over the top, I'm going to hit a stick. And it also helps me kind of, as I take it back, I can keep that club head in that track. So I know I'm not rolling my club behind me. And so it's helping my takeaway and it's helping my impact because I'm swinging down that line. You can also use sponges, head covers, blocks, yoga blocks, whatever. But that's probably like the number one thing if you're going to practice with a plan for me is to create some type of immediate feedback around the ball. You can even put golf tees and create a gate that way. And you don't have to be the guy in the range who's got 100 golf training aids around and kind of like in Tin Cup, but putting a couple tees down, swinging in between those, even if you hit the tees a few times or something like that, it's going to have a huge benefit on your game. And you're going to feel like when you're done practicing, you've gotten a lot more out of that because you know all the different areas you were able to improve upon by practicing. The other kind of thing I'd like to touch upon is a lot of people, when they go to practice, they maybe say their golf tee time is 2 o'clock. They show up at 1:45. They rush down to the range. They hit. They're not even paying attention to what they're doing. They're just looking for contact, and then they rush to the cart, grab some beers or whatever, and they're on to hole one. They maybe hit a bad drive. So one, they've not put they're not in a mental space to play golf, and I understand that everybody's got a million things going on. You can get out there, you rush, you try to get out there, that's okay. But try to put yourself in a good mental space before you play golf. If you can get there half an hour, 45 minutes early, hit 20 golf balls on the range, a few minutes on the putting green to get in a mental space that'll help you be prepared and ready. That'll certainly help. The thing about rushing through and not taking time to hit the golf balls to understand what you're doing, that's not how you play on the course. So try to make sure that your practice sessions are how you would play on the course. So if I hit a golf ball, I don't just roll it off ball and hit it right immediately. One, that's bad for your back. It's not really helpful to keep playing that way. But two, come back, get your target, go through the process, go through your one practice swing or whatever you're doing to get that feeling, and then go ahead, hit a golf ball, take 30 seconds, put it down, because on the golf course, you don't play that way. So you need to train your body to not always be in a rhythm. Because I know when I practice basketball and all these other sports, it's just easier to get a rhythm because you're constantly moving and constantly doing stuff. Golf, you're not constantly hitting. You hit a golf ball, say you outdrive your friends. You're feeling on top of the world. Your friends are struggling. It might be 10, 12 minutes before you get your next shot. So you need to make sure that you have a good setup routine, that you know how to take time in between golf shots and what you're trying to work on. That's another thing as far as practicing with a purpose, is to make sure that you're following kind of a regimented pre-shot routine when you play. So many golfers don't do that. And for me, golf has a lot of variables. And if you can take variables out of that and be more consistent, you're going to shoot lower scores. And you're going to be in the 80s, wherever your range is, you're going to be there a lot more. So for me, it's always finding my target, get to the ball. I have maybe a little waggle, or I'm doing something where I know I'm working. So for me, I'm trying to get more wrist hinge right now and a better takeaway. So I do one preset here. So no, I know what I'm getting. I get the preset. I go up. I got my one practice swing. Then I address the ball. So it's the same thing every time, whatever you're doing. Don't just sometimes you don't look at your target. Sometimes you take 2, 3 practice swings. Sometimes it's one. Sometimes you don't practice swing. That's really inconsistent. And it's kind of like if you have a job where you put on a uniform, whether it be a suit, police officer, doctor, therapist, whatever it happens to be, when you put on that uniform, it's in a weird way, your body starts going like, okay, this is what we're doing. This is the role we have today. It gets back into those comfortable things that it's used to. So when you are under pressure or you're trying to play consistent, if you can take out those variables and train your body to do instinctively what you want it to do versus trying to think your way through it or get the brain involved, you're going to be a lot better off. Because if you can keep the brain on the sideline a little bit and say, okay, we've done all our thinking, we know the wind, we know our target, all that. Now when we address the ball, we let our body do what we've trained it to do. And so if you can take that kind of mental aspect out of it and try not to overthink it too much, you'll play more consistent golf that way. So again, practicing with a purpose, know how many golf balls you're hitting. If it's 30 golf balls, make sure that it's really the best 30 golf balls you're going to hit. Don't overdo it. Keep track of like mentally, like, oh, when I was doing, this drill with the takeaway or whatever happens to be, that made a lot of sense to me. When you come home, put it in your phone in your notes and say like, I always have like a golf notes and I put the date and like, this is what I was doing. It felt really good. Keep working on this. And so that way, when I go to play, I can quickly look at that one or two things of like, say I've got like a downswing thought. So for me, for early extension, let's say my downswing thought is to get this lead hit back. So if there's like a chair there, I want to bump that chair and get that out of the way, get that leg out of the way. So for me, I write that down and say, hey, don't forget about doing that thing with your hip where you can get it back. So that way I know I don't have to constantly relearn all the stuff that I'm already learning on the golf course because I've forgotten it. And I think Bobby Jones has a quote out there where he says, I've forgotten more things than you'll ever learn in golf. And that's so true because you learn something and it works for a golf weekend or something. And then you come back and you're like, the next time you play, nothing makes sense. It just doesn't feel right. So that way, by having the consistency of your setup and your routine and all that stuff, you're ingraining, all those good things. And if you can ingrain like a little pre-shot drill that for me, like I said, I tend to roll my wrist, and especially if I'm nervous, I'll get the club head behind me and it'll cause all types of problems. So in my head, I always imagine like there's a little T in the end of my club, and I kind of think, okay, just rub that along the trail leg as I take it back. That's kind of my feeling and my thought. So I write that down so I know. And I even have a note section like, if you're struggling with your golf swing, this is what you look for. So that way you can go back and look at your encyclopedia, so to speak, of why you might be struggling, and it'll help a lot. So again, having a plan, knowing what you're working on when you're going to the course or the range or even on your simulator. For me, I don't come out here and I don't hit wedges and mid irons and hybrids and drivers and all that. I come out and I'm like, today I'm going to work on wedges. Tomorrow I'm going to work on chipping. Then I'm going to work on my driver. I don't try to do it all at once. I do what I'm going to work on and I focus on that task. And I try to work on the stuff that's bothering my swing or that I have problems with. So don't just come out, oh man, I got this. I want to play in the simulator, blah, 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 hit a bunch of golf balls and then run in the house, because you're not really focusing on anything. You're just kind of taking your body through the motions. You're not remembering what you're doing really well. So for me, practicing with a plan is having an idea of like what drills I'm going to do. So for me, it's like I do 10 of a certain drill, 10 swings of a certain drill. I do 10 swings of a certain drill. Like you've heard me on my other videos, I talk about the towel drill or feeling like connection drills. So taking your shirt, kind of tucking it up here. And, before I even hit golf balls, I do 10 slow swings of feeling that torso, hip, arm, get it all connected. So that way when I'm practicing, I'm getting the most out of it. So again, my channel has tons of videos and drills and stuff. If you like the tips and drills that I'm going through in this video, I ask you to like and subscribe as I can continue to share my knowledge. If there's a drill or something that you're struggling with, please comment below. If I can't help you, obviously probably somebody in the YouTube community can do that. But I can't stress enough, when you practice with a plan. Make sure that you know what you're doing, kind of keep track record of what you're going through. Hey, I played this way, this drill really works for me. Write that down, keep some notes. There's nothing wrong with being a little tedious on your golf notes so you know what's working and what's not. And like I said, get a lesson, learn how to record your swing. Those are two things that will have huge impact, because when you're practicing, especially during the summertime when I'm playing more than I'm practicing, I always record my swing at least once every 2 weeks just to look at it and make sure, like, is a bad habit creeping in? Because if you let a bad habit creep in and it's there too long, it'll be really, really difficult to remove, and it'll take, hundreds of swings and a new process for you to create to try to get rid of it. So if you can kind of keep tabs on that, kind of like checking the oil, that's good. But knowing what you look for will have huge, huge improvements on your game. So again, if you like this video, please like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. And I hope some of these tips for practicing with a purpose can help. And good luck in your next round.